This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation. Hello, my name is Gerard Robinson, and welcome back to another session of In Character. I'm joined by Allison from Utah. She was part of a group conversation where we discussed the role of educators in working with families and children to get them more involved with their child's education. So, Allison, welcome back to In Character.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
During our conversation, you provided a couple of really good examples of what you've done in the past in your work to involve and engage families in education. Just share one or two that come to mind.
Wow. So I spent 26 years in both third and fifth grade. And I began my career, honestly, when the classroom was incredibly teacher-centered. Kids came in and they sat in rows, right? And they played the game of school very well. And along with that, parents, honestly, it was as if we had defined roles, and parents came to that back to school night and they came to parent-teacher conferences. But I found that over the years, things changed incredibly for the good. My classroom became a much more student-centered classroom. And with that, I found that I really needed to reach out and bring parents in to my classroom more often, or have them share the learning experience. But it took some time. It took some shifting of thoughts, both on my part and on, I think, the parts of my parents. I started to really take a shift in the homework that I was sending home. Again, a teacher-centered classroom would send home homework that's a bunch of, a lot of problems on a page and a lot of questions to be answered that have one answer. But I found that my students had their own learning communities at home. We have a learning community in my classroom, but they also have other learning communities like the sports teams they may be on, or they may be taking lessons, art lessons, or a musical instrument lesson. That's another learning community. But the home is actually the most important and the first learning community that they're in. And I needed to find a way to connect the two learning communities and have them connect the amazing things they were learning in my classroom with those that knew more and other great things at home, and to really connect that. So I started to change my homework and have kids go home and talk about their learning, interview their parents or anyone else, any other caregiver they had, ask them what they knew, share and demonstrate their learning, especially with things like math, but also science and reading. And at first, I had parents who kind of pushed back and said, where's the list of problems? Like, where's the long, page of work? And I really had to kind of, reach out and say, have some faith in this. I want you to kind of join the conversation about what we're learning. And that made a big difference, but I will say it took a while for us to really connect our learning community in the classroom with how they could apply that learning to that learning community at home. And we tried it a lot of different ways. It was fun.
A lot of teachers I know share your professional commitment and passion in working with families. And as you said, sometimes it's just not that easy to break over. Parents who have come to you and said, you know what, I'm so glad you've done this. Those who were at least a little resistant at first, what did you do to help break that with the families in particular?
I'm so glad you asked that, because in the same way our learners in our classroom are all different, well, so are our families, so are our parents, their backgrounds and the way they view education. And that was the first step I had to take, was realize everyone views this a little differently. One of the ways I actually made that connection with parents was asking them to share their experiences. And again, some were very reticent to do that. But initially, and when I was teaching fifth grade, I had my students at the beginning of the year go home and interview their caregiver, their parents or grandparents, about how they used math in their job. And I made sure they were very mindful that if a parent was one who stayed home and didn't work outside the home, that they were still doing an incredibly important job with had math. And they just having them share what they did for a living and how they used math, they went crazy with it. And the kids would come back and share it, put it under the document camera. Let me show you what my mom does. And it was incredible. And then we moved that in as technology changed to video. And that just made them feel, I hope, important and appreciated that we cared about their learning and about what they were doing. I loved surveys. I did them when I taught American history, surveys about the sayings and idioms that come from the American Revolution. It's so much fun, but I had to find ways to have them come and share what they knew with the kids too. And so I often invited parents and grandparents to come in and share their understanding. From the electrician that came in, the dad who came in and lit up a pickle in my room, that was a moment, to one of my students who came from Mexico. Her mom came in and told, when we were covering the Battle of the Alamo, told she lived it. You know, Mexico story very different. So inviting them in and letting them know, I value your knowledge. I value your experience, and it will help all of us learn more. That was huge. And then there was a partnership and a trust, and that really helped kids feel more comfortable in terms of their background and bringing their background into the classroom because I invited them in, right? I also think that a lot of the parents have an idea of what a teacher is and what a teacher's role is. And we play into that, unfortunately. I think at the very beginning of the year, teachers often share some of the least important information with parents. In other words, they talk about their schedule, their homework policy, their grading policy, what their classroom management will look like, when they should be sharing how much they love to teach. They should be talking about their favorite parts of their job and how excited they are for those kids. Because the best thing as a parent is when you know you can drop that kid off at school to a parent, the best part is when you can drop your kid off to school in the morning, knowing that your child is walking into a classroom with a teacher that loves to teach. That's what a parent wants to know. It's a little more powerful than the homework policy.
Hear, hear. You're now working to prepare teachers for this work. What advice do you have for your peers across the country who are also involved in preparing the next generation of educators to work in schools, but as you shared, to also invite families in to a community of learning?
Oh, wow. I tell you what, mentoring is an incredibly deep experience and a really complex skill set to master. And I think it's important as we mentor new teachers in our induction programs that we balance mentoring their skill set with also mentoring their affect, their emotional wellness. We know how challenging teaching is, and new teachers need to know that people have empathy for them so that they can have empathy for themselves as they go through the hard parts of teaching, and they can also offer empathy to their students. I think it's incredibly important that we model, obviously, reflective practice, because in teaching, you don't always have someone telling you what to do or how to do things. You master skills by going through a reflective process. And so it's important that we really work that reflective process with them. In terms of helping new teachers, though, to connect with families, it's incredibly important that we talk to new teachers about the idea that while we're all really aware that our vulnerable populations may live in food insecure homes, we don't often talk about the fact that some of our students, regardless of socioeconomic life situations, they may live in literature insecure homes. They may live in homes where social topics are not discussed or the arts are not experienced. And we have that honor and privilege to bring that, to push that in with meaningful homework activities and other ways for students to talk about their learning at home, to really share it and bring parents in. It shouldn't be education, learning is siloed into the classroom and then you go home and you might do a worksheet. It really needs to be, I'm going to share what I know at home so that the family learns more. And we all, especially if we're speaking two languages, what an amazing opportunity to share vocabulary and learn more and apply. But I think new teachers are so busy working on learning new skills and setting up curriculum that they often don't consider, how will I help a student to continue wondering when they go home? What do I do that makes a student want to just go home and talk about it and bring back more questions and more wonders? That's something we can kind of weave into our mentoring experiences. And I think it will help new teachers not only stay vigilant, but also grow in their excitement and their passion for teaching. Because we're going to lose them all. We're going to lose half of them in 5 years. So we've got to do what we can to keep them excited and keep them with us.
Wonder is a word often unused in conversations about children. I think of Joseph Campbell's book on myth and the importance of understanding wonder. It keeps creativity. It makes you go, I hadn't thought about that. So I'm so glad that you keep wonder in the work. Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining me for another conversation in character and for the work that you do for educators and families, but more importantly, for sharing your wisdom and your professional credentials and ideas with us. Thanks a lot.
You bet. Thank you. I always love to talk about this.
That's why we have In Character.
The work. This is the work.
And you're at work now.
I am. I'm at work. I'll be here for a while. It's West Coast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.